whole 2.5 months has actually gone by now since the last Reptile room tour, and with it being the autumn, which is a season of change, plenty of things have gone on and I really do need to update you guys about them. Now, on this handy sheet of paper that I've written out here is most of the stuff that's gone on behind the scenes that I am going to bring you all up to speed with in today's video. And as well as that, because it is like brumation is on set properly now and the reptiles are asleep, it's a great time of year for me to start upgrading things, like, you know, taking enclosures apart, putting new electronics in and so on. And so in today's video, I'm going to be fully discussing all of those things that I will be doing over the next month or so. Now, as well as this, if you are a subscriber of the channel, then you will know that quite a lot has been happening with my channel itself over the past 2.5 months, so if you stick around to the end of the video, I will be discussing that. But anyway, without going on too much of a tangent, I do just want to get straight into this video so that I can start showing you guys everything that I've got planned and everything that's changed, because I am pretty excited about it all. So give this video a like, give us a comment so that I know what you think, and subscribe to my channel so that you never miss an upload, and let's get straight into it. So one of the main themes of this video is going to end up being brumation, because the autumn coming into the winter time is when brumation starts. Now, brumation, if you don't know, is just like hibernation, but it specifically refers to reptiles. There's no true technicality to the term, it's just the word we use. Now, on that note, we are going to kick off today's video by looking at Charlie the Bearded Dragon. So, brief overview of the enclosure so that if you've never seen it before, you know what we're actually looking at. Charlie the Bearded Dragon's enclosure is a 5 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot black wooden vivarium. It's fully bioactive like all of my enclosures at the minute. It's lit with a 14% Arcadia Dragon Lamp UVB bulb, and it is heated with something that I'll discuss in a moment because it is one of the changes I'm going to make in the next month. So since last time, there are some changes that you will immediately notice. Now, if you look sort of towards the right hand side of his enclosure, you will see that he has got some more leaves in there, and there are some more leaves piled up around his enclosure. This is just because, like, it's been autumn and I've been leaf hunting, and like just putting the leaves around with different setups, because they are a vital part of a bioactive enclosure, even an arid one like this. Now, I have made a video all about collecting leaves in the past, so if you want to find out how, I'll chuck like a link up to it in the top right hand corner of the screen. But anyway, moving on, you'll see like other changes are that at the cool end, I have also removed Char's backup heater. This is because it was sort of like not really doing anything, and I was actually getting quite a lot of people wondering what it was there for, thinking I wasn't providing a thermal gradient. And given that it wasn't doing anything like particularly important, I thought I'd just remove it to like get rid of that confusion, because having thermal gradients for reptiles is such an important thing, and I don't want people watching my videos to get confused about that. And of course, because removing that heater added up a little bit of space, I put one of Char's branches back in that we took out when we upgraded his setup a couple of months ago. And of course, Char himself. You're probably wondering at this point, like, where's Char? Because usually in these videos, he's sort of sat somewhere around here, or like running face first into the glass and bobbing his head, or scratching the doors begging for food, or eating plants, or some other stupid bearded dragon thing that he does. But like I say, brumation. Sort of round about September time, like, well, I say sort of around that time as if I've done it years on years, but this is only the second time Char's brumated. But usually around September time, Char just sort of loses a lot of his vim and vigour and just starts sitting around and stuff. And this is just like the onset of winter. And then sort of come October, I started cooling him down, and now it's like mid-November and he is fully asleep. All of my reptiles that are in brumation right now, I did cool down over the entire period of a month, and reduced the daylight time, so that was reduced from 12 hours a day to 6 hours a day now. Brumation is a really big topic, so I don't just want to leave it here in this video, but sort of a brief summary of it is that you cool your reptiles down at the start of the winter season, or sort of in the middle of autumn, that's what I do, and then warm them up at the start of spring again. And that just sort of gives them that opportunity to express wild behaviours of hunkering down in the winter, and this has been shown to both improve breeding like prospects, which isn't too important for me because I'm not breeding a lot of my reptiles at the minute. more on that later. But like, it does just help them have that better health because it is something that they do in the wild. And there are some cases, like, or reports, whatever, of reptiles living longer if they are brumated. But back to Char specifically, he has chosen a really rubbish place to hide for the winter. You can see that he's sort of curled up in a sort of strange ball-like position underneath his sort of basking zone slate thing that I built him. Now, the intention of that slate thing was, you'll remember when we put it in, that I actually sort of left a gap underneath it. It's sort of propped up on top of bricks, and the idea was that in the winter he could dig right underneath that and it'd be a nice little burrow for him. But Char being Char, he did not do that. He just sat on top of his slate, scratched away at the slate, the rock, which he cannot dig through, for ages, until he just gave up and curled around and slept there. In the end, I was like kind of pitying him trying to dig there, so I sort of dug out a bit of the sand underneath, and you can see it's left like that. But no, apparently that's not good enough, and Char prefers to sleep out in the open, but whatever, he can do what he likes. And the last little note about Char is the upgrade that I want to do for him. So you'll remember, like, not too long ago I did a full unboxing of some gear that John Courtney Smith from Arcadia sent me, and part of that was a 100-watt halogen heat lamp that I am intending to use for Char. Now I haven't got around to putting this in yet because I need a couple of new fittings for it. But in about a month's time, I'll be doing that, and that will be a major heating upgrade for Char, so that when he wakes up in the spring, he'll have that to look forward to. But yeah, I think I've rabbited on about Char for long enough now, so why don't we go to this fella? Just like Char, Red the corn snake is fully asleep now. He hasn't been crawling around or anything in quite a few weeks, but he is all okay. He's actually chosen to sleep out in a sort of more normal place, which is sort of half under his water bowl and half under one of his hides, which is actually nice and secluded and buried away, unlike right out in the open like Char. Once again, Red's enclosure is a 5 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot black wooden vivarium that's fully bioactive. It's not actually live planted in this instance because I am going to be replanting his setup in a couple of weeks' time, or maybe sort of towards the end of the brumation season when it's warmed up a bit more. I'm not decided yet. But like I say, fully bioactive. It's got UVB lighting in there, and it does have a little ceramic heat emitter as the heat source. I'm not really happy with that though, and I am going to be changing that out to an 80-watt deep heat projector by Arcadia in the next month, so that'll be a nice upgrade for him. And his light has just turned off behind me. You know what, we're rolling with it. This is brumation in action. This is what I talk about when I say about shorter photo periods. During the winter, you do want to replicate those shorter daylight hours for temperate species of reptiles, and that, as well as just temperature cues, is going to help them go into a proper deep sleep over the winter months. But yeah, the only sort of changes that have occurred with Red's enclosure thus far is that I've added loads and loads of leaves, because like I say, I have collected loads in the autumn glut, and with Red's enclosure being a sort of woodland setup, it does look really good having leaves in there, and of course Red likes to sniff through them and stuff. Well, not when he's asleep, but he does enjoy leaves in the rest of the year, so it is really good to have him in there. Having been forced to sit in another location in order to film this video, it would only seem appropriate that we talk about the reptiles that are now in this shot, and that would be the Chinese leopard snakes, which aren't actually both in this shot, just one is. So the enclosure that's actually directly above me is Chloe the Chinese leopard snake's enclosure, which we did set up a couple of weeks ago. Now if you want to see how I actually set up this enclosure, I did do a complete video on it, so you can go and check that out if you want to. And we did add Chloe the Chinese leopard snake to it. Now a little bit more info about these snakes. If you don't know what they are basically like a sort of mini corn snake from China. And they aren't actually kept that often, but I think they look really cool, and I am really excited to be working with them because they are actually going to be a breeding project going into the next season. Now, for this breeding project, I am definitely going to have to cool a pair of Chinese leopard snakes that I've got. I'm actually just starting that today, that cooling process, because this is going to be the first sort of proper winter, so I don't want to do it too long. And then after I put the two snakes into the new enclosures, I did want to make sure that they were feeding properly before I moved them like into any sort of cool period, because it is absolutely essential that your reptiles are healthy and well fed before going into brumation, because if they do have any problems, that long period of cold and so on is just going to exacerbate them. To run down the setup quickly, it's just a 3 foot long, 2 feet deep and 35cm tall custom built enclosure from REPTILE Viveria. I bought them like as just a product. I am not paid to say anything about them, so I'm not going to. But, well, I will do, let's be fair. I do like these enclosures. They did get out to me quickly, and they do the job properly. But yeah, they're lit with Arcadia Shade Dweller UVB units. I might get some Arcadia JD bars, Jungle Dawn bars, for extra visible light, and also both of the setups are heated with Arcadia deep heat projectors. So you'll probably have noticed the word both slipping into me sentences there, and that is because I do actually have a second setup for Rusty, who is my male Chinese leopard snake. Rusty's enclosure, there wasn't really much point me making another video on setting this up because it was like exactly the same as Chloe's. As you'll see, the differences are basically just in the layout of it, but everything else about it's the same. It's got the same heating, the same lighting and so on, just like a different individual snake in it and a different layout. Since setting these enclosures up and then later on putting the snakes into them, I have barely seen them at all. Which is kind of why you may not actually see any clips of them that you haven't seen before in this video, because I haven't been able to take any, and I was sort of expecting this because Chinese leopard snakes are incredibly timid. That was also one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure they were feeding in this setups before I cooled them down. Because like I haven't even managed to get Rusty the Chinese leopard snake to take off the tongs, and he is generally an absolute beast when it comes to feeding. I literally have to come in, leave the mouse in, and then it'll disappear in a couple of hours. And then even to get that to happen, I have to come in and feed them at like 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning, because they seem to be the most active in like early doors, and if I go in any later in the day or even at night, they aren't really interested. So really, at the moment, those two snakes are pretty boring, and I've got not really very much to say about them, apart from the fact that since the last Reptile room tour, I have put them in the new setups. I am really happy with the setups because they do have everything that they need in them to thrive, and I do like the look of them, but we shouldn't really stay on them for too long, so I've not really gone in to show you. That should come next spring, once they're in breeding mode, and hopefully I'm more interested in their food. Next up in the Reptile room tour, it is only fair that we have a look at Speckles the leopard gecko, even though he is another sleeper. Speckles' setup is roundabouts a 3x2x2 foot bioactive enclosure, lit with another Arcadia Shade Dweller UVB kit. It's got a white Python LED kit for extra visible light, and it is heated with an Arcadia deep heat projector. Once again, Speckles is one of my reptiles that will be going into brumation, or rather has gone into brumation now, but a little bit of a sort of quite interesting tale that I've got to tell about him is that, like, the other week I sort of had finished cooling him down, but he wasn't cold enough to go into a full deep sleep. It was actually about 15 degrees Celsius in his setup, which I like put up on the screen if I remember how like warm that is in Fahrenheit for those people that use that. But let me get the point across that that is really pretty cold. And sort of I thought that by that point he would be fully asleep, but no, I was coming in and he was sort of moving between hides. He'd be in one sort of area the next day and like change the next day after that, which is moving about a lot more than both Red and Char are moving around. And then I actually came in and he was full on out in the middle of the day, just like sat there soaking up UV rays. So I managed to get some clips of him, but that really did take me by surprise. Now the thing with brumation is that you can't just sort of go at it half-hearted. If you sort of cool a reptile down to the point where they were like Speckles was, where he was walking around and still slightly active, but you aren't going to be able to feed them because they can't digest without the heat, then that is a bad thing because they will be burning weight but not putting any on, and you do risk like starvation and things like that. Now it is going to be pretty hard to starve a reptile in 3 months at that temperature, but it's not good and you could have some infections and stuff occurring. So what I did at this point when I saw Speckles was like still being reasonably active, I lowered everything down by 2 degrees, both his daytime and nighttime temperatures, and since then he's been a good boy and has just slept. So whilst I am actually really happy with Speckles' heating and lighting, I am still going to be doing a really quite exciting upgrade with him in the next month. Now, as you'll see if you look around his enclosure, I am actually reasonably happy with it. I think it looks decent. But I am not using all of the space that's available. You'll see on the back side and sort of the right hand side of the enclosure that there's a lot of open space that could be used. So what I'm actually going to be doing is building a sort of cork rack thing that I'm going to sort of drill into the sides and whatever. And so that should allow Speckles like some extra layers to crawl up the sides of his enclosure and increase the surface area of usable space to him in the enclosure, allowing him to get more exercise and allowing him some space to get away from the companions that may well be going in the enclosure with him. Yes. Anybody that's keeping an eye out on my social medias of late will know that I've sort of been thinking about going into a breeding project with my Crested Gecko Splat. But sort of having done more research on that, I think it's going to be more feasible for a lot of practical reasons and for the sort of well-being of the animals to actually do that with leopard geckos rather than crested geckos, which if I do end up doing it is something I'll talk about again. But this upgrade that I'm doing for Speckles is sort of, I'm thinking I need more hiding places in there, more spaces for individual leopard geckos to get away from each other. But basically what I'm thinking of doing is getting 1 or 2 female, probably 2 female leopard geckos to live with Speckles, and provided they get on and so on, have a little breeding group, and that's a little project that I'll take you guys along with if I decide to do it. But that project is still very much in its early days, so I wouldn't bank on it actually happening. But what will be happening is I will be doing that sort of Cork Expansion upgrade thing for Speckles, because I do think it will help him out to get more areas to climb and exercise. Now, having just mentioned him, it would sort of seem appropriate to segue into Splat the Crested Gecko. Now, in real time, it has actually just been under a month since I did some major upgrades to Splat's lighting, because we added an Arcadia Shade Dweller Pro T5 unit, as well as an Arcadia Jungle Dawn LED bar, the 22 watt version, to his setup, which John Courtney Smith again did send me free of charge, but I haven't been paid or anything to say anything about these, so what I'm about to say about them is genuinely true, and you can see for yourself. The Jungle Dawn LED bar is without a shadow of a doubt the best plant growth lighting I have ever had. You'll remember in the video I did where I did the upgrade, I said that I was filming it on the 19th of October. Well, today is the 16th of November, so it's just under a month, and you can already see that the Neoregelia bromeliads in the back right of Splat's setup are just absolutely going nuts with how pink they are going. Seriously, it's unbelievable. It's just absolute phenomenal growth in a very short amount of time, and I literally could not ask for any more from a light. And then if you look around the rest of his setup, you'll see that the rest of the plants are just going absolutely nuts. The new cuttings that I've added in are taken, and it just looks a real crisp colour. I'd say out of all the lights I've ever had for reptiles, the Jungle Dawn LED bar has got to produce the nicest CRI light, which just means that it just looks the most natural, and so I am incredibly happy with that upgrade. So like I say, I had sort of been toying with the idea of starting a Crested Gecko breeding project, but sort of I don't really think that it would be the most practical breeding project for me to do. I have already got 2 on the ball, which is the Chinese leopard snakes and the lime day geckos, which we will get onto in a sec. But Splat the Cresty himself is, as ever, an absolute nutcase. You're going to feed him and he just absolutely launches everywhere. Sometimes I open the door or accidentally brush into him when I'm doing some vivarium maintenance, and he goes flying around everywhere, and he just sits there looking absolutely crazy. And now we move on to the line day geckos. I'd say the biggest changes have probably got to be with these 3. Because last reptile room tour, we actually only had 2 line day geckos, Liana and Gordon. In this reptile room tour, we have 3 light day geckos: Liana, Orchid, and Andro. Now, if you want to know what happened to Gordon and where on earth Andro came from, I actually did make a video all about all of this and actually acquiring Andro, and literally where Gordon apparently disappeared to, in a recent video. So I'll chuck up a link to that and you can have a watch after you finish seeing this video. Now, like I say, these geckos are a breeding project, but because they're from Madagascar, which is a real sort of tropical area, they aren't going to experience a proper winter as such, but it still is important for the breeding process to give them a cool down period, to match up with the winter is just convenient. And so what I've done is I've cooled them down, well, not so much cooled them down, but I've reduced the lighting period so that the lights are only on 10 hours a day as opposed to 12. And then also ambient temperatures have dropped because the ambient room temperatures have dropped. And this has seen all of the geckos become a bit less active, which is just sort of what you want so that they can recuperate from the summer, so that the females are ready for laying eggs again in the next season. And as well as this, unfortunately, all of the geckos have been incredibly shy. Well, I suppose Orchid's not that shy because she never has been shy. But Liana and Andro are incredibly shy and I barely see them at all because I did have to do some lighting upgrades with them. You'll remember in the last video that I talked about getting an upgrade for the Arcadia Shade Dweller unit I had. Not because it's a bad unit, it's a fantastic unit, but because it wasn't intense enough for these particular geckos. And I actually needed another Arcadia Shade Dweller unit for one of the Chinese leopard snake enclosures. So I took the line day geckos light off and gave it to Rusty. But then of course I needed a new UVB bulb for these geckos, and that was when I started running into some issues. The vivarium they are in is fully bioactive once again, and it is a DMS vivarium, which I have done a full review on in the past. And it is a fantastic vivarium, totally bespoke service. But the problem is, in getting this enclosure to review, I didn't actually really get a say on what I wanted. And at the time I was sort of planning on getting dart frogs and then changed to day geckos at the last minute. So this enclosure isn't exactly built for purpose, and the little mesh section, which is the only area I've got to put UV and heat lamps on, is really tiny, and the problem I was facing is that I could not buy anything that was small enough to actually align the heat and light for this setup. Now, what I mean by this is that it is incredibly important as part of the light and shade method to ensure that you have your UVB bulbs and heat lamps positioned so that the peak UV index and the peak temperature in the enclosure are completely matched up. Now, this is sort of easier on larger scales because you've got larger lamps and you can sort of angle them together, and if you've got an animal as large as a bearded dragon or something, then the beam of bulbs is automatically going to cover them at the same time, so you can sort of get away with it. But in this instance, I am playing with a very small area of mesh to get lights on, and the geckos themselves are 10 centimeters long, including the tail. So to somehow manage to get the light beams to get dead close together, it was just impossible trying to find a product that would do that for me, and I basically spat the dummy out and built a solution. Now, what I came up with was this little black canopy thing that's made of wood, and I am actually incredibly happy with it because it does exactly what I wanted it to, and the geckos are using it, so that's fantastic. I am going to sort of change the bulbs that are in it because I've got 2 compact UVB bulbs in there at the minute, and I want to change that out a little bit, which again is something I want to talk about in the future. But anyway, if you want to see exactly what this canopy is and how I built it and what reflectors I've got in there, then do let us know down in the comment section and I will make another video about it. Now, last reptile room tour I did start off a tradition that I'm going to continue, and that is talking about my Fluval Roma 90 aquarium as the last little bit of a feature in the reptile room tours. Now, since the last update video I did on it, the Fluval Roma has actually undergone some pretty big changes. You'll notice that I've added an extra air stone in there for more circulation, and that I've took the background off. Now, sort of the thinking behind this is that, well, for the background, I think it just looks better. But I have always, historically struggled with plants in this setup. Now, I haven't really got the budget to be going around buying £500 CO2 injecting kits, because like upgrade to my reptiles that sort of matter more than just getting plants to go in my fish tank, and so I don't really have the funds lying around to do that. But I do still want the tank to look better, and I've been looking for more efficient ways to do that, and I have actually found some. Now, where I was heading with this is that, like, having just the more aeration in the tank seems to allow it to get more CO2 in. Like, if you think about it, unless you're injecting CO2 purposefully, the highest the sort of CO2 concentration that you're going to have in the water is what's in, like, the atmosphere. And to maintain it as what's in the atmosphere, you're going to need the most gaseous exchange between the air and the water column as possible. And to achieve that, you just need more surface area water, and what provides that? More circulation. But yeah, as well as this, I don't actually fertilise this tank with anything at the minute. I am thinking of like getting into doing salts and stuff, which this probably sounds like all a load of rubbish to those of you who aren't interested in fish. But basically, this is all like different things that we do to try and get our plants to grow, because it is a lot harder than it looks. But the most simple thing that I've been doing recently of late is literally feeding my fish more, so that there's more waste going around in the water, because like my nitrates are ridiculously low, and so the plants have actually been growing markedly better since then. But whatever the case, I'm going to stop gibbering about those because this isn't a fish tank channel and you probably aren't interested, but you probably will be interested in what I'm going to talk about now. So for the subscribers of the channel, you've probably noticed that some things have been changing recently. You'll notice that my logo has gone from being like a picture of Char with JTB written under it to just like some fancy lettering that says JTB with like a tail going around it, and then also my channel banner has changed completely. So, to give all due respect, I had some massive help doing this from Jake Hockley, who's like a channel artist that I've known for a couple of years. You might remember him from the channel Reptopia when he used to do his own reptile stuff, and that's how I found out about him. But he helped me out with all of this, and he designed my logo and so on. So big shout out to him. But what I really want to ask in this video is, what do you guys think about it? From the community poll that I put up a couple of days ago, it seems that you guys tend to like it, but there is some sort of like people like not really liking the logo as much anymore, and so in this video I do want to take the moment to discuss why I've changed the logo. Now what I mean by logo is like my profile picture, what you see when you go to click on the channel, and because I used to have a picture of Char on it and I did like that. But where I'm sort of heading with the channel is like, when you scroll through your YouTube homepage, you see tiny little avatars, and they are dead hard to see, and I'm sort of thinking like, if you're scrolling through YouTube and you see a sort of nondescript image of something black and orange, it doesn't really stand out, whereas the logo I've got now, you can actually see what's going on. So I sort of wanted to change it, even though I like my old logo sort of better aesthetically. I think practically the new one I've got is like more purpose built. Like, I'll drop a comment down in the comment section, and when I reply to you, you'll see that like the avatar is so small that to have a detailed picture in it doesn't really work in my opinion. But anyway, that's what I was thinking about it, and really all I want to know is what you guys think. So leave your comments on your opinions and so on, and I will seriously look at them and consider them. But yeah guys, at the end of a long video, we are finally here. Lots of things, of course, have been going on. There have been lots of changes. There are lots of changes to come. Pretty exciting times ahead. I've got some pretty exciting videos planned. I've still got some that I've been planning to do for ages. There's one on calci sand that you guys will probably find interesting. One on feeding crested geckos, like dry foods, which is quite a sort of exciting and topical thing. And then I've got some other things that I will be talking about too. So yeah, if you did enjoy this video, then leave it a like, and of course, make sure that you don't miss an upload and that you keep following nature's example by subscribing to my channel. But that is it for now. I've been JTB Reptiles, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye guys! That upgrade for Speckles because I think it'll help him out getting more eggs.